Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Lead Scoring Monday, the and Logic release party. I'm Casey, and this is Carolan, and we are legitimately celebrating today because if you've been following along, you know I've been complaining about the lack of and criteria in HubSpot's lead scoring app since it launched. I even emailed Melody, HubSpot's lead scoring product manager. I love you so much last week because when I finally saw this feature, I was that excited. So today we're diving into conditional scoring with and logic and what it does, how to use it, and which workarounds you can finally retire. We've got 30 minutes. We'll do the live demo and we're taking questions. So feel free to drop anything in the comments. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing great. Good timing here. I think we've been talking a lot about timing and relevance and context in general is so important to get right if you're trying to make scoring work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure this helps a ton with that.
It does. So to kick things off, we will talk about what are we talking about today? And that is this update that came out January 7th, 2026. You can now create conditional scoring rules using and that awards points only when multiple criteria are met. There's a demo video in this update. Just so you know, I have the lead scoring update open, but this is also true for the health scoring app. Oh, I know how to work computers, don't mind me. This is also true for the health scoring app too, if you're using that. I do think they had to break these out into two updates just because it's a beta right now. And you have to opt into the beta. And I think you just have to opt into both of those separately, just the way it works functionally. Some examples of how you can use this. So if you wanted to add 15 points when a contact's job title is CEO and their role is decision maker and industry is tech, or if you wanted to add 10 points for contacts who clicked a link in an email, if the email name was new email and URL is HubSpot.com and location is California. Chris, we talked about this a little this morning on the morning show. I know some of those specific use cases are a little precise, but what are your initial impressions of this update as someone that loves lead scoring?
I think it's interesting, especially if you look at that first example, like, and the content I've done with Joshua Oakes about like a decision maker label,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like this is where how does this happen without marketing and sales like
Mhm.
working together actively,
Mhm.
which kind of flies in the face of what everybody expects scoring to be.
Yeah.
And when you say it's marketing's job to do the score, like they should not be deciding if this person is a decision maker,
Mhm.
like or not, right?
Mhm.
Um, in a classic case is like sales says, I want all CEOs, but then you look in the database and like the directors or whatever, they're the ones actually like making decisions. Um, the case by case basis that can be like, so how would you approach that if we want to see a score that includes these three things, but knowing that it's a combination of marketing and sales updating data?
I whenever I have lead scoring conversations, I go back to something that you've said, which is like, why are we even talking about like two teams? Why are we talking about the sales team and the marketing team? Like it should just be one. So that's something I come back to a lot. Um, I think one another thing I think about is your sales team actually updating records in your CRM? Which is a problem I see a lot. Like, I think a lot of times the reason marketing is in charge of lead scoring is because that is who marketing is deeming eligible to get passed to sales. So that feels like marketing's responsibility. It's called traditionally, it's called marketing qualified leads. So the lead score is determining who is marketing qualified, like marketing should decide that. Um, However, the big problem there becomes marketing is incentivized to create as many marketing qualified leads as possible, which then, changes who and, their motivations change. Um, in a perfect world, this sales is very involved um, in who gets qualified and what these processes look like. However, as someone that's been a marketer for many many years, I'm always surprised at how skeptical sales teams tend to be on like being involved in this. Like it seems like such an easy thing. Like yes, yes, I want to get better leads. Um, but I don't know if it's just like the historic friction and things like that. But I always learn stuff when I talk to the sales team because they're the ones talking. They're the ones saying, "No, it's not CEOs who are making the decisions." So all of that to say, it should be one team and
Yeah.
everyone should be involved very heavily as possible, really.
Yeah. And with the other health score update and the buying groups update that we saw today, I think probably faster than we expected, like thinking of this as one score,
Mhm.
like and if it is one score, it doesn't make sense to use the word lead. It does make sense to use the word health
Mhm.
because really that's what you're trying to track, especially if sales is making changes and then the score is changing, like that's keeping track of the relationship as a whole. And thinking about where opportunities come from post sale, things like if somebody was a director and an let's say decision maker, and they had a score because of that, and then they get promoted,
Mhm.
like maybe they stay a decision maker, maybe not, but these things start to work together in terms of they might have been the decision maker for the sale,
Mhm.
but then for like the implementation team or the delivery team, the people actually using, there might be, a different decision maker.
Mhm.
So if you still have this score sitting there, right,
Mhm.
it allows for a lot of flexibility. It also adds complexity,
Mhm.
but in my opinion, it's complexity we need to embrace. And when you can align that with stages like audience researcher, hand raiser, like it starts to make, like when you try to score things like this and label them as MQL, it inherently doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
people opt out of those situations when they don't know how to make sense of it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, and like worst case or best case, I don't know, you put silly questions on forms that try to get people to say whether they're a decision maker or not,
Mhm.
which is like the worst way to add that label to your CRM. Like
Mhm.
most people are not going to say, "Yeah, I'm a nobody." Like, but I'm interested. They're like, "Yeah, let's just put decision maker because I want the right level of attention, from the sales team." I mean, you said these are very specific examples, while also saying you use custom workflows a lot to create this in a past when we didn't have and. Which ones are you looking forward to switching, like from the workflow to this, like the fastest?
Well, it's really like when we get to like so this second example here where we're adding 10 points, if they've clicked a link in an email, the email's name is new email and the URL is HubSpot. It's that and they're in California piece that like I think adds a layer that like I'm sure there are many organizations where that is true and relevant and they're really at the end of the day just trying to show you like the possibilities. But this is something that I'm doing very commonly, is creating a workflow. Did you hear the dog?
I did. That's all good. He's excited about scoring.
He is excited about scoring. Um, the those are the types of examples that like I have workflows right now running to say things because and we can go over to the tool and like recreate that. So right now, or if you're not opted into the email, into the beta is maybe another way of saying this. I can say, I can give points based on email is sent, and I can say, and the email name is any of ticket closed. And I can give points based on that. That's it.
And this is where, like, and just as a reminder, we can create properties for emails now, right?
Yep.
Can we use those here? Like if there was a custom property, I'm gonna assume yes.
I think so. I think so, but I don't really want to go too
Probably a
hard.
poor assumption. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think just as an example, as we hear about things, especially getting outside the realm of lead scoring, like we just talked about, quote, custom properties today.
Mm-hmm.
As we think about properties everywhere on all these objects like meetings and like using them in this way,
Mm-hmm.
like can add a lot of value and visibility really quickly instead of making all the other reports that we often make to try and bring all the context like together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now I can, this button, this and button is what's new. Does it right there, new. So now we can say the marketing campaign, we can say when it occurred. This is an email sent. So I think if I do, they should have clicked a link. Yeah. And now I can pick the URL. I mean, that's a very common instance where like I don't want to give a score to every email click because we have links in our email to unsubscribe. We have links in our email to just our like LinkedIn page and stuff. Like I want to see who clicked the link to the resource I sent in that email. That's what I'm trying to score based off of. And they're just, you had to compromise either, or you had to build a workflow to score points on instead, which was a possible workaround, but it was a huge point of friction because I was just constantly like, okay, I'm building the score, and now I have to go over to workflows and do this. Now I have to go over to list. I was doing a lot of scoring out of lists too. I don't really have a great reason other than it just seemed less disruptive than adding like, Chris, you and I talked about like the debt that you get in a HubSpot portal building all these workarounds. I think that was really it. I was like, I'm going into workflow debt just to score. And somehow list felt less of intrusive or something. I don't know.
Well, I've seen that a lot where some of the most complicated lists, aka segments, setups are for the purpose of making sure we don't need all the tech debt later, right? Because that's where, as you build any kind of functionality, especially in HubSpot, you're trying to do it in a modular way that if we do it in lists this way, then not only is it going to help with scoring, it's going to help with views and automation and all these other ways that we need to use segments. So I think that makes sense.
And then, but yeah, this is very easy, very intuitive. I think contains value, whatever. Yeah, and then you can keep adding on. I think that's really like I mentioned that the examples in the update were very specific, but I think they were just trying to show you that you can go and like you can keep going.
Right. And can we click add event criteria above it.
Yeah, that's just another, if you wanted to add a different.
Right. I'm curious, like if you select event.
Oh, do you want
Okay.
an
So
email
these
event?
are the only events we have to choose from right now.
These are the email events we have to choose from. It's a little bit of like a nested structure. So I'm in like
Oh,
email.
marketing email. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in marketing email events right now. So if I go down here, I can look at events for lots of different things.
All of these things.
Mhm.
Um, so I would think this would be like figuring out where the property needs to live in order to score on it. Like now that you have this and functionality,
Mhm.
like probably could impact some data models.
Mhm. 'Cause this does highlight like the big continued limitation or limitation still, which is I can say and within email events, but if I wanted to say, did they click the demo link in this email and then request a demo, fill out the demo form? I still need a workflow right now to say those two things happened.
Okay. So engagement ands are within the same object only.
That's what it appears at this moment in time, yes.
Okay.
Um, and similarly, one thing I have workarounds for is did they fill out the demo form and are they a CEO? And there's not that you would still either need a workflow or a list to score based on.
Okay.
And that's a difference between fit and engagement. That's but still.
Okay.
It's all of those limitations in mind. Still like a really great step. I've been asking for this again since the lead scoring tool came out. As soon as I started moving scores over from like the legacy properties to the scoring app, I immediately was like, wait a minute, how do I do and? And so I've been kind of working around that from there. So I'm happy to see this in the right direction. Um, it's easy for me on the outside to say, why can't I say and? I can do it in segments, I can do it in workflows. But I can see from like a tool perspective, like the nesting of different thing. I mean, even here, like Chris, you were like, okay, click end add event. And then it was like, actually, we want to add event over here. And there's also like add event groups. Like the nesting of things is already pretty complicated in the lead scoring app, and it just gets more complicated.
Yeah. And click on association settings real quick next to web events. So this is how you would use association labels
Yep.
to score a specific. Um, yeah, there's a lot of power here,
Mhm.
but it feels like a lot of data model, like and process understanding, and that's when you get to the people needing to work together um, to,
And that's
to
where,
to make these scores like worth it, right?
yeah. Yeah, because I have I have left around around many a portals tech debt that this specific update like solves. And also, and the word of the day, um, even if I was to build a score today, based on where the limitations are, I would likely be creating more tech debt just for that. But that brings into question like, would a custom property on the um either the email record or something else solve for some of that? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah, I would hope. Like, we'll have to check. Because if, like, this is a great reason to add email custom properties. Like, if it allows you to get more granular with your scoring.
Well, more so, it just depends on what your score is based off of. Like an email custom property could work, but if I want to score people who received a specific email and did another action, like a form submission, I don't have a great way of doing that, even within an email.
Right. I think this starts to bring in some of the, like a better version of if you go over to the email, like results.
Mm.
And a lot of times, like clicks versus opens versus whatever the engagement was of the email is what drives the follow-up lists, right?
Mhm.
And if there is like either do or don't if they live in the state, or if they like those extra spots, and I'm sure this is maybe better done like if it's in the demographic, or the contact fit
Mhm.
score, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, just a lot of nuance, and they're giving us the ability to manage that nuance effectively, but it's still need to be very strategic in the way that you apply it.
Mhm. And even like here, I think I know that I've built some scores that have been like, if their industry is accounting and we have someone in our system with a job title of head accountant or, whatever, things like that. So still some nuances that will continue to work out, but I'm excited to have this in the right direction, and I think it will continue to improve and make our scoring more effective because sometimes when we're making compromises, it's compromising the results.
Yep. You think she'll take us up on the unboxing offer?
I hope so.
I think so too. Um, is she responsible, or is that team responsible for lead and health? Like same team doing scoring?
So,
All right. That gives me hope.
all right. Any final thoughts, Chris?
Let's go. Look forward to doing some, like, I think we're going to start getting into some like uh polished might not be the right word, but use cases as far as what this looks like on a record.
Mhm.
And maybe now, right, you could show us some, like, if it's been a workaround. I think it'd be helpful to know, like, if there's workarounds built, like how do we move away from those into
Mhm.
this, and
Mhm.
what do we need to change elsewhere in the system, like, to support that?
Yeah.
So homework for next week.
All right. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Happy Lead Scoring Monday, and we will see you next time.